Before we get started, please go over to Amazon.com and grab a copy of my book, Education and Justice. If you have an African-American son in public school, you need this book because I teach you the many ways that public schools mistreat African-American boys and what you can do to help your son. So go over there and get your copy immediately. Hello, I am attorney Augustus Corbett, one half of the Defiant Lawyers. And each and every week, we bring you at least one legal analysis of some story trending regarding politics, policies, personalities, or pop culture to empower you with the information you need to define the unjust legal system. If that interests you, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Also like, share, and comment. And click the bell so you'll get notified every time we upload one of these videos. Thank you so much for tuning in and welcome to the Defiant Lawyers. And the question, again, I know it's provocative. It's rhetorical. I do know the answer to the question, but I just want to get you thinking. Hey, family, do you believe in the work we're doing? Does our content speak to you? Do you appreciate our in-depth legal analysis and political commentary from an African-American perspective? Do you believe it matters to our community? Then don't just watch from the sidelines. Please click that membership button and become a member of the 2% Club today. That's right, we need just 2% of our subscribers to become channel members. For just $4.99 a month, that's less than 20 cents a day, you'll help us keep creating powerful content that defends our democracy, demands justice, and develops a strong African-American community. But if you want more, at $9.99 a month, which is only 33 cents a day, you'll get access to exclusive members-only live streams, bonus content, and behind-the-scenes updates. And for just $14.99 a month, which is under 50 cents a day, our top-tier members get access to live Zoom calls, strategy sessions, and a direct voice in shaping this movement. We're not just building a YouTube channel. Folks, we're building a movement based on righteousness and justice. Just what our community needs in a time of disinformation and division. So if you believe in what we're doing, click the membership button and join now. Become a member of the 2% Club today. Let's build something powerful together. And I want us to just acknowledge the truth, the facts about living on a planet where our European counterparts have gone around the globe convincing everybody that the European stock is superior and everything associated with the European stock is superior. All the physical features of the European stock is superior. Thus, many non-white people around the world want to be white or want to be accepted by whites. That is just a sad fact. And it applies to nearly every one of us, including myself. I can remember the days as a young man when I would get my hair straightened and permed. I would use as a teenager. Yes, I'm telling you, I'm just being honest. As a teenager, I would put on bleaching cream. And you see, I'm pretty light-skinned. Yet I wasn't quite white enough subconsciously because of the psychological damage that comes from living in a country where every standard of beauty is based on being white. And not only that, but every method to obtain wealth, status, success also depends on one's skin color, one's ethnicity. It has had a tremendous impact on us, non-white people here in America and around the world. I've heard of horrifying stories of Asian people getting surgery to straighten their eyes out so they don't have slanted eyes. I have read and heard about Africans who continue to bleach their skin because they want to be white, want to look white, want to be light-skinned, right? We all know about these stories, these sad experiences, but there is a high cost for non-white people who want to be white or accepted by white. What is that cost? We recently saw Senator Tim Scott, just really embarrass himself and debase himself.
It's a shame. Uh-oh.
I just love you.
No, that's...
Trying to appease Donald Trump. But Tim Scott is not the only one. He is one of a long list of people who have been willing to pay the cost to be white, basically. So that's what I'm going to look at for the next few minutes. And we're going to look at it pretty methodically. It shouldn't take me too long, but it'll be worth the wait. It'll be worth you going through all of this video with me from start to finish. All right, so let's go ahead and get into this. The name of this video is The Cost of Whiteness. Why do many non-whites want to be white or accepted by whites? Again, the title is The Cost of Whiteness. Why do many non-whites want to be white or accepted by white? Now, let's make an observation from the very beginning, one that was made by the late James Baldwin. He said, and I quote, "No one was white before he/she came to America." So being white is a human construct. It's something that Europeans created to justify their exploitation of many non-white people. James Baldwin is saying here, no one was white before he/she came to America, because in a country like America, where so many things are based on race and skin color, white is a big deal here. It's a really big deal. Now, I want to quote Isabel Wickerson from her book, Caste, The Origins of Our Discontents. Now, you need to get a copy of this book. This is a really, really, really good book. All right. So go get a copy, support the sister. She is an award-winning journalist who has a mean pen. She can really write very well, and this is a really great book. Go out and get it. She says, quote, "Oppressed people from Europe passed through Ellis Island, shed their old selves, often their old names, to gain admittance to the powerful, dominant majority. Somewhere in the journey, Europeans became something they had never been or needed to be before. They went from being Czech or Hungarian or Polish to white, a political designation that only has meaning when set against something not white. They would join a new creation, an umbrella category for anyone who entered the new world from Europe." All right, let's quote her again, same book. Ms. Wickerson says, "To gain acceptance, each fresh infusion of immigrants had to enter into a silent, unspoken pact of separating and distancing themselves from the established lowest caste. Becoming white meant defining themselves as furthest from its opposite, black. They could establish their new status by observing how the lowest caste was regarded and imitating or one-upping the disdain and contempt, learning the epithets, joining in on violence against them to prove themselves worthy of admittance to the dominant caste." So she's telling us what oppressed groups from the continent of Europe did to become white once they arrived here in America. And basically, they had to be evil toward blacks. That was the acceptance card that the Europeans had to do once they got here. All right. Now, I'm going to show you for blacks who immigrated here. I'm not talking about African Americans, because unlike what Ben Carson said, we are not immigrants. We were brought here forcefully and enslaved for 246 years. But black immigrants, like from Africa, from Haiti, and so forth, and even African Americans, what we have to do, those who are willing to pay that price to be white or accepted by white, is much greater than what these other people have to do. All right, I'll talk about that momentarily. So she lays it out and explains what the cost is for oppressed Europeans once they arrived here. Now, let's quote something from Malcolm X. Malcolm X, in a speech, he talked about the house Negro versus the field Negro. He says, you have two types of Negro, the old type and the new type. Most of you know the old type. When you read about him in history during slavery, he was called Uncle Tom. He was the house Negro. And during slavery, you had two Negroes. You had the house Negro and the field Negro. The house Negro usually lived close to his master. He dressed like his master. He wore his master's secondhand clothes. He ate food that his master left on the table. And he lived in his master's house, and probably in the basement or the attic. But he still lived in the master's house. So whenever that house Negro identified himself, he always identified himself in the same sense that his master identified himself. When his master said, "We have good food," the house Negro would say, "Yes, we have plenty of good food. We have plenty of good food." When the master said that we have a fine house here, the house Negro said, "Yes, we have a fine house here." When the master would be sick, the house Negro identified himself so much with his master, he'd say, "What's the matter, boss? We sick?" His master's pain was his pain, and it hurt him more for his master to be sick than for him to be sick himself. When the house started burning down, that type of Negro would fight harder to put the master's house out than the master himself would. But then you had another Negro out in the field. The house Negro was in the minority. The masses, the field Negroes, were the masses. They were in the majority. When the master got sick, they prayed that he'd die. If his house caught on fire, they prayed for a wind to come along and fan the breeze. If someone came to the house Negro and said, "Let's go, let's separate," naturally that Uncle Tom would say, "Go where? What could I do without boss? Where would I live? How would I dress? Who would look out for me?" That's the house Negro. But if you went to the field Negro and said, "Let's go, let's separate," he wouldn't even ask you where or how. He'd say, "Yes, let's go." And that one ended right there. So from all of these quotes, we see that you have people in the African American community who want to be really, really, really identified with whites and accepted by whites. If they could, they would become whites. But at least they want to be identified with whites, and they want to be accepted by whites. That's, again, throughout the world, not just African Americans, but throughout the world, sadly and unfortunately. Now, I want to go back to my slides here, and I created a diagram just to kind of show you this in a pictorial form. So if you look in the middle of this diagram, you'll see a white family, and you will see a bunch of dollar signs around that white family. Those dollar signs are symbolic of white privilege, white power, the ability to create wealth, all the great advantages, benefits, and privileges of being white. Now, you got circles around that center circle of other types of people. You got Hispanics, you got Chinese, you got Italians, you got blacks at the bottom, you got Spaniards, you got Jews, you got French, you got Scots, you got Brits, you got Arabs, and on and on and on. And when they come here to America, or when they go to one of those European countries, oftentimes they want to make their way into that circle. Because that circle, let me bring it up full stop. That circle represent, again, power, wealth, privilege, prestige, and so on. Now, we've already talked about what it takes to get in that circle. I'm going to show you in detail some of the things that's required to make it into that circle. That circle represents whiteness. So they all want to get into that circle. Now, let's go back. Everyone except blacks can get into that circle. Now, a lot of blacks think that they can also, but I'm going to show you in just a moment. They cannot. They cannot. But these other folks, Hispanics, in fact, Hispanics are listed as whites. Chinese, Italians, Spaniards, Jews. Now, Jews traditionally and historically were not white, but they are now. All right. French, Scots, Brits, of course, they're all from the European continent, so they have a really easy time getting in. The Spaniards, however, and the Italians, a little darker hue, they have to pay a little bit more. You know, when they hit Ellis Island, they had to pay a little bit more. It cost them a little bit more to become white. The Europeans that are from the sort of northern part of the continent, again, France and the Brits and so on, they didn't have to pay quite as much. But there is a cost. There's a cost to get into that white club. And once there, though, it again is very, very, very lucrative. So once they got into that center circle, that's where the good things begin. That's where the prosperity began. That's where the wealth began. That's where the privileges begin. That's when you get the good jobs. That's when you get the supervisory positions. That's when you get the better health care. That's when you get the better education, the better schools, the admittance to the better universities. If you can make your way into that center circle. So what is the cost? What is the cost of getting into that center circle? Let's look at that. This is a non-exhaustive list. But if you're black, you got to be willing to repudiate blackness. You got to be willing to completely say and say it loud. I'm not black. Or I'm not African. I'm not African American. You cannot get into that circle. And blacks, by the way, can't get into it anyway. But some think they can. But they got to be willing to repudiate blackness. Got to be willing to say and to act and to behave like they repudiate black. So there's first for black folks a repudiation of blackness. And that's generally true for non-white people. We see that with people like Nikki Haley, right? She has had to repudiate her Indian heritage, right? She changed her name from Nimarata to Nikki, right? She married a white man. Now she has, what you could say are white children. I mean, all of that has helped Nikki Haley get into that center circle and experience some of the benefits and privileges of doing so. And like we said, when they come over here, when the Europeans come here, and when non-white folks come here, they have to be willing to also repudiate blackness. They have to be willing to do that. In order to, it's like being a part of a gang. You got to prove your bona fides. You got to show your loyalty. And that loyalty requires that you be anti-black. That's what to get your card stamped. The more anti-black you are, the quicker, the sooner, the deeper you can get into that circle. And we saw that also with Vivek Ramaswamy. Right? Very, very anti-black. He was trying to be more anti-black than Donald Trump because he wanted to get his card stamped so he can get into that center circle. And he's already done it, right? Vivek Ramaswamy is a very wealthy dude. I understand he's a billionaire, close to being a billionaire, and we have seen him in operation. He has done it a lot by being anti-black. Because that's the requirement. That shows that you will go all the way to get your white card, to get it stamped. All right, what else? What else? What are some other costs? Repudiation of self. If you're a non-white person, you got to be willing to repudiate yourself. And let me just go ahead and show repudiation of your culture. Because you got to fully embrace white culture. You got to fully embrace European culture. I went to an HBCU, for example. Just think about this now. I went to an HBCU. This is back in the early 80s. Some of you weren't even born. I went to an HBCU, North Carolina A&T State University. And one of the classes that was required of us back then was European civilization. European civilization. That's what we had to take at an HBCU. Why am I taking European civilization? I am not European. I am an African American. I'm not interested in Europe. I could care less about the Brits and the French, the Portuguese, the Germans. I don't, who cares? I don't. But I had to take that course to graduate. Now, it wasn't required at an HBCU, historically black college or university. It was not required to take African American history or to take African history. I had to learn their history. And that was a part of the process of me repudiating my blackness, myself, and my culture. And many blacks are very willing to do that because they want to try to get that white card. Although I'm going to show you, blacks don't get that white card. I'm going to show you what blacks can get, but it is not that white card, no matter how hard they try. What else? Got to promote white supremacy. Non-white people, in order to get their white card, they must promote white supremacy. They got to talk about it. They got to defend it. They got to try to explain why it's not evil. They have to embrace it in order to get that white card. And they don't mind doing it. We saw Vivek Ramaswamy say that he had never seen such a boogeyman as white supremacy. Now, here's a guy who's been living, who was born in America, who has lived in America, yet he's telling people to try to get that white acceptance, more of it, that white supremacy to him is like a boogeyman, the elusive boogeyman that he has never been able to find. When you deny in a racist country like America, a country, a slaveholding country, a Jim Crow country, a systemic racist country, when you deny white supremacy in a country like this, you are definitely kowtowing to get your white card or to be accepted by whites. Nikki Haley, when she says the Civil War was not fought over slavery, and she followed it up. Wow. Oh, man. Woo. She followed it up by saying America had never been racist. Woo. Wow. All her effort as a non-white woman to become white or to be accepted by white. And of course, Tim Scott infamously said that America is not a racist country. Those are all the things that people are willing to do to get that white status, to get that white acceptance. Those are the things non-white folks have to do. So what are they again? Repudiate blackness or whatever their ethnicity is, repudiate themselves, repudiate their culture, their name, all of that, their language, promote white supremacy. Oftentimes marry or date whites. Now we really see that with African-American men and with African men. Man, they really seem, a lot of us, a lot of black men really seem to want a white spouse or white girlfriend. Because I guess it's another step toward, getting that white acceptance, getting that white card stamped. So, man, we see it everywhere, especially when a lot of African-American men obtain wealth and status and celebrity, as, like a professional athlete. Many of them, not all of them, and not even the majority still marry within their race. And by the way, I don't care who anyone marries, except for when they are marrying consciously to become a white accepted non-white person, then I have a problem with it because it's coming from a bad place. But if two people meet and marry and love one another and date one another and whatever, and it's just love and it's not because some guy is trying to, get into the white world or be accepted by the white world, then fine. But if it's coming from that place of trying to get that card stamped, then obviously that is very unhealthy, very psychologically and mentally unhealthy, right? But those are the things that you often see of non-white people doing to become white or accepted by whites, repudiating themselves, especially blackness, repudiating their ethnicity, their culture, promoting white supremacy, and oftentimes marrying into the white race. And another, I guess they figure another thing, but that is the next generation in their family will be that step closer to being fully accepted into the white race. In other words, their children. All right. Now, the rewards. What are the rewards? I've already alluded to the rewards, but let's look at them. The rewards of white inclusion, white acceptance. Well, first, there's white privilege. You get some privileges. What else? Personal financial rewards. Because now that you're in the door, all of the practices and patterns and systems and institutions that have favored whites for generations, for centuries, you're now the benefactor of those systems and privileges. Once you get accepted, that's why that center circle had, let me pull it up, that picture, that center circle. See those dollar signs? That's white privilege. That those signs represent the personal financial rewards for a non-white person becoming white. All right? By them repudiating black people, repudiating themselves, repudiating their culture, promoting white supremacy. Here's some of the rewards of doing so. So I just wanted you to see that. So what are some other personal benefits? White privilege, personal financial rewards. What else? Family financial rewards. So not only does that person, but also that person's family, children, grandchildren, siblings, all now can benefit from that family member becoming white or accepted by whites. Lucrative opportunities. Yeah, tremendous business deals. Opportunities that one would ordinarily not get except from becoming this non-white white person. I mean, it's paying off that you're repudiating black folks. I mean, Vivek Ramaswamy got his biggest applause when he would say anti-black things. Ron DeSantis, he spent preparing his entire campaign by doing all kinds of anti-black stuff. I mean, they were literally trying to anti-black each other. I'm talking about the GOP candidates, DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy, Tim Scott, Larry Elder. All of them were trying to out anti-black one another because that gets the acceptance, that gets your card stamped. That's number one. What else? Fast track careers. Oh, you're going to get promoted. You're going to get the red carpet. You're going to get that treatment. You're going to get it, man. Your career is going to take off. Your business is going to get loans that other businesses cannot get. So this is why these folks do this. But blacks, no. They try, but it doesn't work. I call that the black illusion. White society view blacks as members of the repudiated race. In order for there to be a white society, there has to be a black society. And that black society is repudiated and repugnant to white society. It must exist. There has to be the evil boogeyman black society. So blacks cannot escape that. Blacks can try. Blacks can live in those neighborhoods. Blacks can suck up to whites. Blacks can promote white supremacy. And the most that they can get, let me show you, the most that they'll be able to get. So let's read. Blacks who therefore seek white inclusion are suffering from illusion. Hence, white society will never fully accept blacks. At best, white society will bestow honorary white status on blacks, but at a heavy cost. So they'll not get that white status like the Italians, the Brits, the Portuguese, the Spaniards, the French. They'll not get that. Even the Arabs, the Hispanics, they get that. But blacks, no. Too much melanin. And again, there has to be that repudiated counterculture or that opposite culture, black culture, has to be. In order for there to be a white, there must be a black. So they cannot let blacks out of that group. But blacks within that group can get honorary white status if they're willing to pay a very heavy price. What's that price? I've talked about it a little bit already, but blacks must, at a minimum, thoroughly repudiate their blackness, undermine efforts to gain full black equality, and passionately promote white supremacy. And you see, that's why I wanted to read Malcolm X's excerpt from that speech. Because people who are willing to pay that cost, blacks who are willing to pay that cost, are what Malcolm calls house negroes. House negroes. They're willing to pay that cost. They'll turn their backs on the African American community and have done so, and will promote white supremacy to the hilt, and consciously so, knowing what they're doing, but it's all right with them. That's how bad they crave that white honorary status. But again, they'll never get full acceptance into that. All they're basically getting is used. They're just getting used. And man, do we not see a lot of blacks, and they've been here the whole time, all the way back to slavery, even in Africa. So why do many non-whites want to be white or accepted by whites? Because the rewards are through the roof. But the question becomes, is it worth the cost? For me, it's not. For me, it's not. No, thank you. You can keep that. I want to look myself in the mirror and know that I have loved my folks. And I have not sold them out for a career move or a position or a business loan, a donation. Offers have been made to me. I rejected them. No, thank you. No, thank you. I'm not interested. So, why do many non-whites want to be white or accepted by whites? There you go. There you have it. Those of you African Americans who want to be in that white club and get your white card, get it stamped, be accepted by whites, you'll never get in. You're suffering from the black illusion. The black illusion syndrome. You're not going to get it. You're just going to get used. Your skin color will forever keep you out of that club. Because again, remember, in order for there to be a white club, there must be that repudiated black club. All right, I am attorney Augustus Corbett, one half of the Defiant Lawyers. We bring you this type of legal analysis every week, at least one time a week, most often more than once. If you're interested in this content, please go ahead and subscribe, like, share, comment, and click the bell so you'll get notified when we upload one of these videos. I am out. Thank you very much for tuning in. And by the way, let me remind you this. We are real lawyers. We practice law. We do civil rights law. We do criminal defense, personal injury, and family law. You should give us a call if you're in the Dallas area, or if it's a PI type case, wrongful death, civil rights case. We can do those anywhere around the country. Just let us know. I'm out. Peace.
That Corbin and Corbett legal team, fighting for the rights of the people. That father-daughter team, investing in the youth when the system ain't treating them equal. Providing truth for our people, we able to reach them. So anytime you get accused for a crime and Lord knows you ain't do it, we here to get you through it. Exemplifying prudence and glorifying God, making sure you're compensated for other people's doings. Our vision is to be one of the best. We're small enough to focus on your matter throughout the neighborhoods of Dallas, working constantly and making sure your rights are protected. A firm team of lawyers, aggressive, effective, a team that has your back in the courtroom. Two well-spoken black lawyers in the courtroom, investing time and resources when it's evident that you were treated wrong. Now you walking out of Dallas courtroom with a settlement. Corbin and Corbett, the father-daughter legal tag team that has your back in the courtroom. Our purpose is simple: to obtain the favorable outcome for each client and glorify Christ in all we do. Our vision is to be one of the best and most